I found out my wife's work trips were just hotel check-ins with Mark. Hey Reddit, I'm Evan. I'm 44, and if you'd asked me 2 years ago, I would have told you I was happily married to Sophie, 42. No kids, but we had a decent life, city apartment, steady jobs, some mutual friends. Before Sophie, I used to live in my hometown, where I was part of a puzzle club. Yeah, actual jigsaw puzzles, big ones, complex designs, some 5,000 plus pieces. It was nerdy, sure, but I loved it. We had weekly meetups, competed in regional events, even did charity puzzle-a-thons. When Sophie and I started dating, she used to roll her eyes about it. "You're a grown man spending hours on children's toys," she'd say, half laughing. I'd laugh it off, but it stung more than I admitted. When we got married and moved to her city, I left the club behind. She'd joke about retiring, my puzzle habit, and I let it happen. Fast forward a few years, Sophie starts getting really into work functions and networking weekends. She's dressing up more, wearing perfume I've never smelled before, and spending hours glued to her phone. When I'd ask what she was so busy with, she'd either get defensive or toss a sarcastic, "Why don't you go find a puzzle to solve, Evan?" I told myself I was imagining things. That she was just focused on her career. That the restlessness I felt in my gut was just me being insecure. Turns out, I wasn't imagining a damn thing. It started with a text notification on her iPad. Sophie was in the shower, and her iPad, synced to her phone, lit up on the coffee table. Normally, I don't snoop. But this one wasn't from a friend I recognized. The preview just said, "Last night was worth every second. Same time next week?" My stomach did a slow roll. I tapped it. Full message from a guy named Mark, apparently, with a winking emoji at the end. That was it. No photos, no graphic details, but I didn't need much imagination. When she came out of the bathroom, hair wrapped in a towel, I asked casually, "Who's Mark?" She didn't even blink. "Oh, he's just someone from work. He's helping me with a project." I nodded, pretending to buy it. But that night, lying in bed next to her, my brain kept replaying the text. "Worth every second. You don't say that to someone you're just working with." And then I remembered, the night before, she told me she was staying late at the office because of end-of-quarter chaos. Only now I knew her office was apparently located between the sheets with Mark. A week later, Sophie told me she had another late night at the office. Something in me snapped. I couldn't sit at home scrolling my phone while she was out God knows where. I decided to swing by her office with takeout, pretend I was being thoughtful, and see for myself. Only I never made it to her building. Halfway there, I passed the downtown Marriott and spotted her walking out of the revolving door. She wasn't in her usual work blazer. She was wearing a fitted red dress I'd never seen before, heels clicking against the sidewalk. And she wasn't alone. Mark, tall, smug-looking, expensive watch, was right beside her. They stopped near the valet stand, and I watched as she leaned in, whispered something, and he kissed her on the neck before heading toward his car. She stood there for a second, smiling to herself, then pulled out her phone. My phone buzzed a moment later. "Still working late. Don't wait up. Love you, Red Heart." I sat there in my car, gripping the steering wheel so hard my hands hurt. She had no idea I'd just seen everything. In that moment I decided I wasn't going to confront her yet. I wanted the full truth, no room for her to wriggle out with half-truths or gaslighting. After the hotel sighting, I knew I needed more than a gotcha moment. Sophie was slick, she could spin anything into being my fault, and I wanted something she couldn't talk her way out of. I called my older brother Nate. He's the kind of guy who knows a guy for everything. I told him enough to get him concerned but not enough for him to blow up and storm over to Sophie's work. Within a day, he'd given me the number of a private investigator he'd used once during a messy custody battle. The PI, a guy named Carter, listened to my story without judgment. 3 days of tailing her, he said. If she's cheating, we'll know. If she's not, you'll sleep better. Either way, you'll have answers. I gave him her schedule, or at least the schedule she'd given me. Carter started that Monday. While he was working, I played dumb at home. Smiled, kissed her cheek, asked about her projects at work. Sophie seemed lighter, even smug. She had no idea I was quietly pulling the rug out from under her. On the third day, Carter called. "You'll want to see this in person," he said. My stomach dropped. Carter met me at a little diner on the edge of town, the kind of place where nobody would think twice about two guys talking over coffee. He slid a manila envelope across the table. "Everything's in there. Times, locations, photos." I didn't include anything too explicit. Didn't think you'd want that burned into your head, but it's enough to prove she's not where she says she is. My hands felt heavy as I opened it. The first photo hit me like a punch, Sophie in that same red dress, arm in arm with Mark, walking into the Marriott. Timestamp, 6:42 p.m. The second photo was them kissing in the elevator lobby. The third, from the next night, showed her in gym clothes, hair wet, stepping out of his apartment building at 8:13 a.m. There was a log of text messages Carter had pulled from her cloud backup, nothing pornographic, but plenty of "Can't wait to see you, last night was amazing," and one that read, "You make me feel alive again." I closed the folder and just sat there staring at my coffee. Alive again. Like our life together was some kind of slow death. Carter said, "You want me to keep going? Get more?" I shook my head. "No. This is enough. It's more than enough." I'd thought seeing it would make me explode with anger. Instead, I felt this cold, hard calm settle over me. The kind you get when you finally know for sure that you're done. I waited until Friday night. She came home in that casual, fake tired way she always did after working late, hair a little too perfect, makeup fresh, gym bag slung over her shoulder. She dropped her keys in the bowl by the door and started telling me some story about a boring meeting that ran long. I let her finish, then walked to the kitchen table, sat down, and slid the manila envelope across to her. "What's this?" she asked, frowning. "Go ahead. Open it." She flipped it open, pulled out the first photo, and froze. Her mouth twitched like she couldn't decide between pretending confusion or going straight to rage. Finally, she went with rage. You hired someone to spy on me? Evan, this is insane." "No," I said, keeping my voice even. "What's insane is lying to my face while you're sleeping with Mark. What's insane is sending him messages about how he makes you feel alive again when you've been married to me for 15 years. Her eyes narrowed. "Maybe if you weren't so dull and wrapped up in your stupid little puzzles, I wouldn't have to." I cut her off. Don't even try to blame this on me. You decided to cheat, Sophie. You decided to lie. That's on you." She laughed, actually laughed, and said, "You'll never find someone who'll put up with your boring crap, Evan." I stood up. "I'd rather be alone forever than spend one more day with you." She didn't have a comeback for that. The rest of that night was a blur of slamming doors and icy silence. Sophie stomped around the apartment, muttering under her breath, packing a random bag of clothes like she was trying to stage some dramatic exit. I didn't stop her. In fact, I grabbed my phone and called my brother Nate. "She's out," I told him. "Bring your truck in the morning. I'm moving her crap into storage." By midnight, she was gone, probably to Mark's place. The apartment was dead quiet except for the faint smell of her perfume still hanging in the air. I opened the windows, let the cold night breeze wash through, and started pulling her stuff out of the closet. The next morning, Nate showed up with coffee and zero judgment. We boxed up her clothes, makeup, bathroom junk, and every framed photo with her in it. By noon, it was all in a storage unit, lock secured, key tossed in an envelope with her name on it. I also called the bank and froze the joint credit card, set up a new account, and changed every password I owned. If she wanted to start her new life with Mark, she could do it on her dime, not mine. By the end of the day, my apartment felt bare, but it was a clean bear, not the hollow, haunted kind. The first cut was made. Now it was time to bleed her out of the rest of my life. I wasn't about to let Sophie spin this into some Evan was neglectful sob story, so I got ahead of it. First call was to my parents. Mom answered, cheerful at first, then quiet as I explained what happened. She was with him for months, maybe longer. I've got the proof. I'm done. There was a long pause before Mom said, You deserve better, honey. Always have. Dad just muttered. Knew she was too smug for her own good. Which from him is basically a character assassination. Next I called my sister Jenna. She didn't even try to hide her fury. Oh, she laughed at you? Good. She's going to choke on that laugh when she's begging you to take her back and you tell her to get lost. Word traveled fast from there. Cousins, aunts, family, friends. I didn't need to blast it on social media. Our circle's tight enough that the truth made its rounds without me lifting a finger. 2 days later, I got a text from Sophie. People are giving me looks. Did you tell them lies about me? I replied. Not lies. Just the truth. No answer after that. Funny thing? Every time I thought about her trying to explain herself to people who'd known us for years, it didn't hurt. It felt like justice in slow motion. I didn't go nuclear. No screaming matches in public, no social media exposés. I wanted her discomfort to build slowly, like a leech she couldn't find but knew was there. First, the money. I'd already frozen the joint credit card, but I went further, closed the joint savings and moved my share into a private account. She got her portion, but it was a fraction of what she'd been used to spending. Second, the connections. Sophie loved flaunting our shared friends, dinner parties, gallery nights, charity events. I didn't ban anyone from talking to her, but I made sure the ones worth keeping knew the full truth. You could almost hear the invitations drying up on her end. Third, the logistics. Her car? Technically mine. I'd bought it outright before we were married. She'd been driving it for years. I told her I was selling it. Watching her sputter over text about how unfair, it was almost made me laugh. And the last one, the address. I ended the lease early and moved out. Left her scrambling to figure out where she'd live next. She never saw me raise my voice, never saw me slam a door. I just erased myself from her access. The more I cut, the lighter I felt. Once the dust settled, the city felt empty. Not because of Sophie, she was just noise I'd finally turned off, but because nothing here felt like mine anymore. One Saturday morning, I drove back to my hometown on a whim. Same winding roads, same diner on the corner, same faded sign for the community center where the puzzle club used to meet. I parked out front and just sat there, watching a couple of people walk in with puzzle boxes under their arms. My people. The ones Sophie used to mock. I didn't go in that day, but on the drive back, the idea lodged itself in my head. Why not just move back? My lease was already ending. My job could go remote. And every good memory I had before Sophie was rooted in that place. 2 weeks later, I signed a rental agreement for a little 2-bedroom apartment in my old neighborhood. The first night there, I ordered from the pizza place I'd loved since high school and sat on the floor eating straight from the box, surrounded by unopened boxes. For the first time in months, the quiet felt safe. The following Tuesday evening, I finally walked through the doors of the community center again. The place smelled exactly the same, coffee brewing in the corner, faint scent of cardboard from puzzle boxes stacked along the walls. I spotted old faces immediately, Mrs. Harper, who could do a 1,000-piece puzzle in a single sitting, Tom and Lisa, the sibling duo who always bickered over edge pieces. When they saw me, there was this moment of surprise, then big smiles. Evan! Thought you moved to the big city and forgot about us, Tom said. I laughed. I did move. And yeah, I forgot about me for a while too. We fell right back into it, sorting pieces, trading tips, laughing about nothing. At one point, Mrs. Harper leaned over and said, You look lighter, Evan. Happier. She didn't know the half of it. By the end of the night, I'd agreed to join their team for the regional competition in a few months. Walking out into the cool night air, puzzle box under my arm, I realized something. Sophie hadn't just taken years from me. I'd let her convince me to hide the things I loved. Not anymore. Getting back into the puzzle club was the spark, but the fire caught fast. I started running into old classmates at the diner, chatting with neighbors I hadn't seen since my 20s. Turns out, small towns remember you, and they remember the good parts. People asked me to join trivia nights, invited me to backyard barbecues, even tried setting me up with their single friends. I wasn't ready for dating, but I said yes to everything else. Tuesday puzzle nights turned into Thursday trivia. Saturday mornings, I'd help Mr. Lawson fix up his old fishing boat, just like we did when I was a kid. And the conversations, they were real. No pretentious networking talk, no one sizing you up by your clothes or your car. Just people who were glad you were there. The biggest shift? I stopped thinking about what Sophie would have said. Every laugh, every new memory, none of it had her shadow hanging over it. One night, walking home from the community center, I realized I hadn't thought about her in days. And when I did, it wasn't with anger anymore. It was just nothing. That's when I knew I was getting my life back. It was a Sunday morning, and I was halfway through a crossword with a pot of coffee brewing when my phone buzzed. Sophie, heard you moved back home. Looks like you're doing well. I miss you. I actually laughed out loud. The audacity. A few minutes later, another one came through. Mark wasn't who I thought he was. We're not together anymore. Can we talk? There it was, the inevitable return. Not because she'd had some grand epiphany about our marriage, but because her shiny new toy had broken and she needed a replacement. I stared at the screen for a while, sipping my coffee. The old me might have been tempted to hear her out, if only to get closure. But I didn't need closure anymore. I had peace. I typed back one sentence. You made your choice, Sophie. I'm exactly where I need to be. Blocked her right after. I wasn't angry. I wasn't smug. Just done. Completely, utterly done. The regional puzzle competition came around faster than I expected. Our team, me, Mrs. Harper, and the sibling duo, Tom and Lisa, met at the community center parking lot at 7 a.m., armed with coffee and way too many snacks. Walking into that hall, the buzz of voices, the rows of long tables, the smell of fresh cardboard from hundreds of brand new puzzles, it hit me like nostalgia on steroids. We started the timer and dove in. My hands moved almost on instinct, edge pieces here, color groups there. We joked, we strategized, we fell into that perfect flow where time doesn't exist. 3 hours later, we clicked the final piece in place. 3rd place overall. We didn't care, it wasn't about winning. As we stood for a group photo, I caught myself grinning so hard my cheeks hurt. This was it. This was the kind of day that used to define me before Sophie, before I let someone else's opinion decide what was worthy of my time. Afterward, we all went to the diner for burgers. Someone snapped a candid of us laughing around the table. Looking at it later, I realized I hadn't looked that happy in years. And none of it had a damn thing to do with her. If there's one thing I've learned through all of this, it's that the right person will never make you feel small for the things that make you happy. Sophie didn't just cheat on me, she chipped away at me for years, made me doubt myself, made me box up parts of my life because they didn't fit her version of interesting. And I let her. That's the part that stings the most when I look back. But here's the thing, I'm not that guy anymore. I'm not asking permission to enjoy my own life. I'm not shrinking myself to keep someone else comfortable. Now I wake up and my first thought isn't what mood will she be in today? It's what do I want to do today? And sometimes that's a 5,000-piece puzzle. Sometimes it's a burger at the diner with friends. Sometimes it's just sitting on my porch, coffee in hand, watching the town wake up. If you're reading this and you've got someone in your life who's making you feel like you have to hide your joy, here's my advice. Don't wait for the betrayal to give you permission to leave. You don't owe anyone your silence about who you are. Sophie's just a bad chapter now. The story's still being written, and this time, I'm holding the pen. I have many other stories. Go to my channel, subscribe so you don't lose us. Give me a thumbs up.